talk about Sean O'Malley, ladies and gentlemen. If you want more dating advice, I recommend going.
If you didn't get enough dating advice from Culture War this morning, we're fresh and fit. We're talking about how you should have 50 girlfriends to be a high-value male. Next, you can listen to Sean O'Malley, where he says the same thing. He says, I can cheat on my wife because I pay for everything and I'm a king. And I should be treated like a king.
He's a king.
That was his point. He went on the Raw Talk podcast to talk about this and do his mental gymnastics and coping as to why it's okay that he has an open marriage, except for the fact that his wife can't be in other relationships, just him. Let's look at the clip.
Okay, let's watch this clip here real quick. Data mode. Here we go.
To the question about, like, would you let another, like, if you believe that, would you let another guy be with your girl? You said no, though.
Yeah, no, that ain't happening.
Yeah, no.
He's a horrible voice.
That's what fuck me. I'm a king. I pay for everything. I treat Danny like a queen. If I get a little puss on the side, what does that have to do with anything?
He has such a horrible voice.
That's unpleasant.
That's fucking simple. I wouldn't say that if I was in the opposite position. If I wasn't paying for everything, if I wasn't successful in any sort of way, and I was just like fucking maybe an average Joe, I probably wouldn't be fair. But I feel like I'm fucking King Kong.
Then you'd have to hide it.
I'm fucking King Kong, baby.
Because of what you have.
He says that like there aren't like normal dudes who like earn the money in the
and pay for everything.
I love how he says there's testosterone pumping through my veins, and he sounds like he's 12 years old.
It feels like he's trying to convince himself of that more than he's trying to convince.
Right, exactly. That's what this whole thing is about. Like this flexing that my wife, I treat her like a queen and she lets me be a king and I get to be a serial philanderer. It's about wanting to get validated in your manhood by the rest of the world and not having any, internal confidence. Like you're not
interesting.
A nonplussed, confident individual. That's actually attractive to women.
Because he is a successful person. He is the bantamweight champion in UFC, right? So he is an accomplished
has the money and the
fighter.
fame.
He's got the money and the fame. But he's also one of the problems I have with a lot of these podcasts that talk about stuff like this is the audience is not the people they're speaking to. Like most of the people who watch this stuff aren't the high value 1% men that they're talking about in these things. It's great in theory, sure, I guess, if you're into it as entertainment, but it's not the real world.
I was seeing that he uses Andrew Tate to back up his view, which I think is sort of a shame.
It's about status.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's a lot of differences in marriages, but I don't see how you can respect a man who treats you like you're just a throwaway. I think that would be really too sad. I had a professor in grad school who he and I always disagreed on this, and he's Cuban, right? His background is Cuban. He came over, whatever. Anyway, lots of stories about government cheese. Anyways, he was always telling me that my view was really puritanical. My view against philandering, against cheating, pro-monogamy. He was always like, Libby, you have such a puritanical American view on this. That's not how it is in the rest of the world. And I always thought, well, I wouldn't want to be married in the rest of the world. You know, I would want a man who wants me and not everybody else. Yeah. Also, it's like, it's sort of dangerous, right? There's like a lot of issues with regard to STDs, which I know that Planned Parenthood now wants us to think are just not even that big a deal. But when I was a kid, it was like this whole issue, sex and intravenous drug use was going to kill you no matter what. And I'm sure there's a lot of Gen Xers out there who are like, yep, that was middle school health class. Johnson. Right. Well, he's fine now because he had enough money to cure himself to get that all sorted. But I think it's a shame that he views his wife like that.
Yeah. I think
also it says she has a job, doesn't it?
He says she doesn't need to work, but she does work 2 days a week.
He pays for everything, but she works just because that's fun for her.
Well, also because eventually he's going to leave her for someone younger and hotter, and she better have a career.
And these two guys are like, they're kind of pushing back on what he's saying because they know that it doesn't make sense. Like they know that they want a real relationship that lasts with someone that's really there for them and they're really there for her, but they don't know how to square that with also being a high value male and just needing that constant stream of validation from women who are pursuing them. I mean, it's just, they're not realizing how little it means when some hoe opens her legs. Like,
right.
It means so little.
Hamilton,
Yeah.
Well, and also like when people were more discerning about that and men actually had to go work for it.
It doesn't say anything about them. It says everything about that woman who does that.
Yeah.
I wanted to read this one comment here. It says, I get the vibe that Sean was a nerd who settled down with the first girl who would talk to him, then regretted it after his career blew up and fame opened so many doors. He negotiated this open relationship so he can bang groupies with a clean conscience, and does some coping mental gymnastic that it's okay if she bangs other guys because getting to bang other chicks is worth the jealousy. Bottom line, in life, you can't have your cake and eat it too. All open relationships are doomed to failure. And I'm just not willing to buy this thing that they're selling. Like, the idea that a man's ultimate fulfillment is found in, screwing as many women as possible. But at the same time, a woman's deepest desire is to be the singular object of a man's affection and pursuits. That doesn't make any sense, biologically or spiritually. Why would our deepest desires be that at odds with each other? Yeah, it's almost like one of us is lying. Like,
that's interesting.
One of us isn't really admitting what we want here.
Well, and so, of course, you have like the entire feminist culture seeking to overturn that potentially female impulse and say that women have the same impulse as men. But casual sex doesn't tend to make women happy or fulfilled.
Yeah.
Which is
and
why
men don't seem to notice.
Which is why women are like antidepressant use is up as high as it is now.
SSRIs are like widest used among middle-aged white women.
Yeah. So, because they're trying to fill a family-sized gaping hole in their lives that's just not there.
Well, the other thing too is you remember Condoleezza Rice? She was Secretary of State under George Bush, and she was on a podcast or whatever it was with, I think, Oprah and Valerie Jarrett, who was high up in the Obama administration, who was also a very fascinating woman, whether you agree with her politics or not. And Condoleezza Rice said, you can have it all, but you can't have it all at once. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. That's true.
Life comes in phases, is what she said.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's one of the hardest parts about it, right? Because when we, women, which are now higher in college graduation numbers, right? Women make up the largest amount of college graduates. They're starting to out earn men. But the problem is, like you said, you can't have it all at once. And if you try to have a family, make it to some high level position at a company, invariably then you have kids, then you eventually have to sacrifice something, and a lot of them are now choosing to not sacrifice the career in favor of kids, which then damages the marriage, which proves that once again you can't have everything.
Well, if you
all at
look
once.
too at Northern European countries where they talk about how equality between the sexes is greatest, you see a higher propensity of women willing to step out of the workforce.
Well, they have way better parental leave.
Right, they have better
benefits,
parental leave stuff. Yeah.
And universal health care.
Yeah, but they also have
which is proportionate to their own population.
Right, but they also have a lot of issues with regard to daycare and what you're allowed to teach your kids.
They have a lot of issues in general.
Sure.
I mean, look at how they're euthanizing people.
That's a big issue.
Yeah,
I hate that. In Canada, that's a
not
big problem as well.
Not the most pro-life culture over there.
It's like a very large percentage. It's like you would be surprised at whatever the percentage is in Canada of people who get euthanized. Mm-hmm.
Is that a high percentage?
It's not like 50% or anything like that, but it's like, you're like, oh, really? It's that much? Let me check.
They're just like, I'm out of here. That's crazy. That's crazy.
But it's just weird, first of all, that he justified this behavior with Andrew Tate, his polemic about what high value men do in their lives, when Andrew Tate himself has walked that back. Like, he's now saying, monogamous relationships are the best type of way to live your life, and you need to, have traditional relationships, traditional gender roles, marriage, family. And he's saying, like, the way I did things was not ideal. I have multiple baby mamas. Yeah. I have children with multiple women, and yes, I treat them all well because I have this wealth, but this is not the ideal way to live your life. Like, you should have an insulated, united family unit. Yeah. And he didn't live his life that way. So even he has walked that back. He has walked that rhetoric back. And it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter that he's walked it back, because all the guys that heard the message they wanted to hear are going to continue running with it.
And like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because these are like random, over the top celebrity examples. They don't represent the average person. His wife doesn't represent the average woman. These are the rare examples that have become entertainment that people are taking as life advice.
Like, our situation's different, because the most guys would just cheat and lie about it.
I was just thinking.
So we're better than them, because at least we tell our women that we're cheating on them.
Well, it's like, do you remember when remember Rihanna and everyone was criticizing her? She had like a cover, I forget, like some glamour magazine cover.
Yeah,
and everyone was like, "Oh, ASAP Rocky is so awful. He's behind her. How could he be like that?"
Yeah, they were on
the green lines.
They criticize it. Yeah, they criticize it no matter what. It doesn't matter what you do. If you're in the spotlight, your lifestyle is going to be hacked apart.
Sure, I did think that cover was weird though, and it's
you thought it was
Mary
weird?
was those people.
You
no,
don't
like I
that
am that person.
What did you hate about it?
I mean, it was like ASAP was like getting led by her, and she was like in this domineering position, and he was in that like maternal
Interesting
position in the photo holding the kid. And I don't know, I didn't like the way that they framed that. Like creatively, every part of that is meticulously thought through,
so you
can't make any of it an afterthought. Like they definitely, that was a calculated way that they framed that shot.
I do think that for a lot of it, whether it's these discussions like this one, or like what they did on Culture War today, or Fresh and Fit, I think a lot of it is actually negative for the culture, because what we're doing, and I mean the entertainment side of this, which is that because we're living in our phones, because we live online, we now hyper analyze every aspect of our relationship with the opposite sex and do very little to actually equate to what that means in the real world. Meaning that you're getting upset at non-existent women because of ideas. Not because of actual examples, but because of ideas that might or might not slightly correlate to something that happened in your life. And we're turning it into some type of either team sport mentality, meaning that men are always right or women are always right, wherever you fall on that line. And at the end of the day, it's not supposed to be that, at least not in relationships. It's supposed to be a team effort together, you and the other person.
Right.
But we've started to overanalyze every aspect of how we interact with the opposite sex, and then use that as an excuse to either be promiscuous or to not engage at all and just stop entirely. And you lose a lot of the human experience when you do that in favor of stuff that at the end of the day is being made for entertainment. Some of these people probably do believe every word of what they're saying, but for the most part, a lot of this ends up being something that people consume passively. And I don't think that's good for us.
Can I just tell you guys how many people in Canada were killed by euthanasia?
Right.
Over 10,000 in 2021. So it's
awful.
more than 3% of the population, which is a large number.
Yeah.
I think that's a very large number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think all of this stuff it's the dating stuff, as far as like social media and as far as shows, has been a net negative for the culture, for our relationships with the opposite sex.
That's interesting.
It's only going to continue trending though. It's like what people want to talk about right now and listen to right now.
Do you think it's going to get worse?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you predict is going to happen?
I don't know. I feel like a lot of young men are really attracted to masculinity thought leaders and also Islam.
Oh, yeah, that's
And
being a thing.
Maybe we're going to see an uptick in like Islamic converts.
Well, Islam doesn't hate itself. You know,
Yes.
Christianity seems to hate itself, at
And
least
it, at
in the
least
US
on the
and
surface,
Europe.
seems to have this robust championing masculinity and, you know, some objective morality, which so many Christian churches have not held on to in the past few decades, so
Yeah.
or longer, really. So hopefully not, but I mean, I can't really predict anything else.
Interesting.
Like, I'm
Yeah,
not
Christianity
optimistic there.
has gone full over in a lot of cases to the like whole LGBT thing.
Like there are still, you know, niche parts of Christianity that are coming back with a stronger, like a stronger Christianity that doesn't alienate men as much.
And then you have the FBI investigating them.
Then, you know, they
So-
are alienated within their own communities.
But they end up
So-
losing anyways because isn't a big proponent of it to turn the other cheek, and when they turn the other cheek, they cede ground in the culture. Islam doesn't.
Well,
turn
that's
the other
often
cheek.
misinterpreted.
No, yeah.
That's often misinterpreted to mean, you know, lay down like a dog.
Yeah, that's not what it means at all.
But that's how it's being perceived these days because Christianity is constantly crapped on.
I mean, Jesus is even talked about like as if he were a woman, as if he walked this earth as a
Right.
woman, and
And
it's
he
not
didn't at all.
appreciated that, you know, this is a man. Like God chose to be incarnate as a man, and that's important. And
Well,
there's
I
something
heard
to
that
identify
song,
with.
and I
And
heard
that's how
God
he
is
was
woman.
able to lift women up, like his mother and Mary. And that's a whole big deal.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.